Okay, so here I am with CivilianSnowman Jack, and we're continuing our collaborative reviews for the rest of the Romero Dead saga. And basically, we're on the same page with the last review. Watch that kind of go skew it on this one.
Honeymoon's over now. Yeah, I think for the rest of these Romero movies, we're seriously going to take polar opposite opinion.
Taking different camps.
Right, so let's start off with brief description of the plot.
Yeah, we're doing Land of the Dead this time, and it's the fourth. Brief description of the plot. You did the last one, so I'll do this one. Basically, humanity has fled into a enclosed city area and has begun to do quite well for itself because it's protected on two sides by a river and it's got fencing that it's installed. Teams of people are going out into surrounding towns to gain supplies, and this is where the hero, or bland bastard, of the film kicks in, the character of Riley and his partner Cholo. They drive around in a huge truck called Dead Reckoning in order to gain supplies.
Dead Reckoning, which incidentally was the original title for this film.
Really?
Yeah, until they decided to swap it to Land, which, let's face it, Land of the Dead is in keeping with the rest of them.
It is.
Because Dead Reckoning I wouldn't have liked. Anyway, that's just a little side note there for you.
Unfortunately, with the... it takes quite a while to explain the plot of this one. Because humans are living together, the class divides have, of course, resurfaced, and you have certain individuals living in a lap of luxury. They are led by a character called Kaufman, who's played by Dennis Hopper.
Which is a thinly veiled metaphor for the Bush administration,
yes,
it's safe to say.
That is one of the big problems I have with this movie, but I'll get onto that later. And basically what happens is that the wagon of Dead Reckoning is stolen, and it's up to Riley and a team of, I don't know, outcasts, let's say, to get Dead Reckoning back. Also, while this is happening, you have the emergence of a new breed of smart zombie.
Which, to be honest, is logical, because it's just continuing from day, and a lot more time has passed, obviously. They've had time to build and protect this city with electric fences and stuff like that, so it's logical that the zombies would be kicking in like that.
I agree with the theory, I don't like the execution, but again...
Right, we'll get onto that in a bit.
Anyway, so that was the synopsis.
Right.
On to Jack. What do you like about this movie?
My general thoughts on this movie, there is a lot I like. Overall, I do really like Land of the Dead, and I think that it is a fitting end to George A. Romero's Dead saga. We know now that it's not actually the end, but when I first saw it, I thought, yeah, I buy that. I'm a big fan of Day, and I think that this is a logical way to end it. The execution's not perfect by any stretch, and I do accept that he toned down the violence slightly, and I imagine that was to get the budget. He was probably faced with the same dilemma that he was with Day. However, it feels like a Romero film to me. It really does. In every sense, it's like it's still... See, I still think it's his kind of fundamental style, and I don't think it's a departure from the others. I honestly believe that he's wanted to make this film, and I don't think he's compromised too much. I can see his compromises, because obviously I've seen all of his films, big fan, and I can see where he's compromised, but I don't think that was to the detriment of the overall film. I still think that, like I said, it's a nice way to end the saga. But do you want to go on to your just general thoughts, and then we'll get on to something more specific?
I'm going to give the counter-argument to your thoughts. I'm not going to say that Land of the Dead is a bad movie. It isn't. It's well shot. Some of the kills are very innovative, and he's got a bigger budget, and it's nice to see George with a bit of money to play with, because let's face it, he doesn't have that. Where I don't like the movie is it's a movie that reeks of compromise and trying to please everybody. For me, the Romero movies are like when you like a band and you feel kind of like, and you follow them right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then when when they're the little indie band, and then when they make it big, you feel kind of disappointed because there's a certain dilution of what you loved about them. And that for me is how I feel about Land of the Dead. It's odd because the thing is, I think you've got to look at Land of the Dead in context, because it rode the wave of the fact that zombies were cool again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd had 28 Days Later.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd had Shaun of the Dead, which had brought vampires into the public consciousness.
You mean zombies?
Yes, zombies. Big difference. We're not talking about Twilight, folks. We're never going to be talking about Twilight. Just looking at Bev.
Ice Cream Man.
Anyway,
carry on.
Anyway, but the point is that basically, I think the zombies were cool again, and Romero kind of went, well, I've been doing this stuff for years, to the studio, and they went, okay, well, what have you got? And it just, for me, it just so courts the casual fan.
Right.
Which is my issue with it. Here's zombies, but nothing to make you feel too bad. And the other thing was, the thing I love about Romero's movies is the social commentary.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, what would you say Night of the Living Dead's about?
Vietnam.
Right.
And obviously the struggle with civil rights.
Yeah, exactly. Right, okay. Dawn, what would you say Dawn's about?
Consumerism.
Consumerism and the bankruptcy of ideals from
Basically,
the 60s.
yeah.
Day of the Dead, that's interesting actually. What would you say Day of the Dead's about?
That is, it's not as easy to really decipher what Day is about, but for me it was nuclear armament and stuff like that, and what the potential weapons are and shit like that, because he's essentially trying to weaponise a zombie. You know, so stuff like that for Day, although it's not as clear cut.
Exactly, and this is it. The thing is, the social commentary is there, and he's kind of whispering it in your ear, and it's a bit of a tickle. In this movie, he screams it in your face till you have to wipe the spittle off. He loses all his subtlety. You've got to agree with me on that. You literally have the character of Kaufman. I mean, do you want to go on about how he's a Bush?
Right, Kaufman essentially is George Bush. Although, to be honest, I know that it's not as subtle as the other movies. However, at least it has some sort of social commentary in it. Because so many of these modern zombie films are coming out, let's just cut zombies' heads off kind of deal. And at least he managed to shoehorn it in there. Like, that's what I mean. He's made a zombie film, and he's had 3 or 4 tasks to achieve with Land of the Dead. He's had to please the fans and end his saga, basically, in a fitting way, which for me, it works. I'm a huge fan, and it works for me, right? Yeah. He's also had to, as you said, jump on the bandwagon of zombies are cool again, thanks to, and it is a fantastic film, 28 Days Later, that really gave zombie movies an adrenaline shot to the heart. So he's having to please newcomers to the genre, and he's also having to just make it more mainstream for people who may not necessarily be into horror or zombie movies. Yeah. And that's why it does feel at times more like an action film than anything else. But that's not a problem I have with it, because knowing what Romero's had to achieve, he's had to please so many people. I think he's managed to do it without making a piece of shit, basically.